Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. ACB here, and this is obviously, as you would have seen from the thumbnail of the video, this is another video on the CIMA strategic case study, which I hope will be very extremely helpful. I took a lot of time to think about what can be of most help for you, and something that I was very happy to announce recently, and this is how the idea for this video came up also, is my announcement for the strategic case study examination sessions for November 2020 exams. And as I made this announcement, I got a few responses, and one of the most common queries that a few students and few learning partners, probably some of you had, was, fine, you're starting your session on the 3rd, okay, we have a couple of months, sure, but the pre-seen is getting released on apparently the 9th of October. Which means you have a couple of weeks, right? You have a couple of weeks, and if you're coming from multiple routes, from the executive route or the A-star route or the CFO route, the gateway routes, etc., where you aren't really engaged with CIMA, or if you're a student, apparently there are so many of you who had stopped your CIMA examinations a few years ago, and then now finally being able to complete your exams, or even get certain exemptions for your pending OTQs based on your work experience. So now you're planning to sit for the case study. So then, if you have a few weeks, what can you do during this time until you get the pre-seen? That was the most common query I had from a few students. So I thought that if a few of you had it, then it's probably something that is running through many of your minds. And I decided to develop this video, which is on the 5 things to do while you wait for the pre-seen. Right. And on that note, I'd like to quickly remind you that yes, I will be starting my session on the 3rd of October. The initial session is completely free, and you can just pop in and basically work with me, discuss with me, and understand the process and how we can, in the most effective, in the most I would say smart way, how can we crack this paper. So on that note, let me get back to the main topic in this video: 5 things to do while you wait for the pre-seen. Now, the first thing is probably the sort of guidance that you can use, because the first is also the most important. Read and evaluate the CIMA strategic case study blueprint. What exactly is the blueprint? The CIMA SCS blueprint is the official document that has all details about the CIMA exam, specifically your exam. It is a publicly available document. It's specifically designed for you to understand this examination, its high standards and its expectations. So if you look at some of the things that are within the blueprint, you can look at, or you can learn about the persona description, the skill levels and the verbs are there. How do you simulate the senior finance manager's role, the job tasks, the core activities and assessment outcomes that are very, very important and very critical, because those are the framework that builds or that leads to the framework of how the examiner marks your paper, and the examination approach, marking, grading, feedback, etc. So there's a lot of information about the CIMA strategic case study within the blueprint, and this is a critical document that you need to evaluate, read, understand and evaluate before you start your prep work. It will provide the necessary guidance for you to effectively do the next few steps. And why I highlight this as the first and most important step is because as you know, in general talk, you would have heard this: before you get into the ring, you must learn about your opponent. So if any Rocky fans are here, you know what I'm talking about. So this is the document that will help you get to know who your opponent is, in this case the CIMA SCS examiner, the CIMA SCS paper. So you have to understand what exactly the SCS involves, how to play that game before you start playing the game. That is why this step is the first and most important step. If you haven't had the chance to spend some time with the SCS blueprint, by all means take a few minutes, go through the important details. They are extremely useful. And that brings me to the second step: revisit objective test question or OTQ or theoretical content. Now, why I say revisit is because you are at the strategic level, right? These are MBA equivalent examination. If that is the case, it's high standard, which means it's most likely that most of the theoretical content you have seen somewhere at some point in your life. So this is the best time for you to quickly revise theoretical areas. You can either refer to your CIMA notes, that is if you're a CIMA student, or access content from your respective financial subjects. What I mean by that is basically almost all of your final year or final stage MBA, CPA, CMA, AAT, ACCA, CFA content is relevant for the CIMA strategic case study. And the blueprint helps you, right? Blueprint helps you look for the few needles in the large haystack of these many qualifications that a multitude of you are probably coming from as your financial backgrounds, and now you're aspiring to be a CIMA member as well. So that content is relevant. You can use that if you don't have any CIMA specific content with you, or you can access multiple sources available on the internet for free, right? There are sources, I wouldn't want to name them here, but you can find a lot of content, a lot of relevant content, and the blueprint will be your guiding document to know what to look for. And using that information about what to look for, you start looking for them, you'll easily find them. Remember, the CIMA SCS is not a theory knowledge test. The examination by no means tests your theoretical knowledge, right? It's about application. So cramming all of the theory is not the objective of this exercise, of this step. The objective is to revise and understand how you can apply theoretical content to actual business scenarios. You probably might be doing this in your day-to-day life as well. If that is the case, brilliant, right? You just need to present it in a written format as far as the case study examination is concerned. And that brings me to the third step: analyze a few past pre-seen documents. So this is very important because the pre-seen is the Bible, right, so to speak, for this examination. And you will basically eat, live, drink, swim, sleep with the pre-seen, right, for a while. Knowing how it is designed can make you prepare well for what is to come in terms of structure. So if you look at past pre-seens, if you actually take the time and do this step, spend some time, a few hours with several pre-seens, you will realize that all pre-seens have the same structure, and that is important. Knowing that structure will ease the burden you feel about your pre-seen, whatever pre-seen is going to be shared with you very soon, right, which has already been shared with the tutors. It is a simple document, but witnessing its simplicity is more effective than assuming its simplicity. So one problem that I see a lot of students make is not doing this step, not looking at a few past pre-seens before your pre-seen gets released. And what that makes is it probably comes from a place where the student or students are confident that this will be a document that you can really spend time, but it doesn't work like that, especially when your pre-seen is the first pre-seen document that you're seeing in your life. This happens to a lot of students, and it creates unnecessary pressure, unnecessary stress. If you take the time to actually download a few past pre-seens and go through them, you will realize how simple, straightforward and easy structure they are developed through. So do this, right? Take your time, spend a few hours, download a few interesting pre-seens, because the first page you'll know what sort of a company it is once you download them. You know if it interests you, so pick a few, maybe 4 or 5, and go through them. You'll realize how simple that structure is. understand them, and observe how the examiner presents information. This will make the new pre-seen much less of a surprise for you, and that is the objective. That is what we are hoping to get at. That is what we are trying to learn from this exercise. We are trying to minimize the examiner's bargaining power, right? In terms of pressure, in terms of stress, in terms of nervousness, in terms of anxiety, right? Because you know that this is a document, and I'll tell you an example. This is why, as financial analysts, new annual reports, right? Say, for example, I used to be a financial analyst at Moody's Analytics Knowledge Services, and I used to cover multiple industry sectors and a few companies in each of those industry sectors. And we as analysts, we get new annual reports and new earnings reports, right? But never has any new annual report or a new earnings report has ever surprised us or surprised me. Why? Because it's the same old format, isn't it? Right? So we know that it's the same document, the same information, just that there's going to be a little few bits of differences in the content that is included. So structurally, it doesn't surprise you, and that is important because it puts you on edge, right? It makes you move faster, and it propels you to be a few steps ahead of certain other students who might not have had the time to take a look at previous pre-seens and understand them, and that is important, right? This is a smart game. Let's play it smartly. And that brings me to the fourth step: evaluate past variants thoroughly and carefully. So the past variants are provided for a reason, right? They are in the public domain. If you're a CIMA student, you go to my CIMA, your CIMA account, and you can download the past exams. They are for a reason, because they are to act as a learning tool for future aspiring CIMA students like yourself. So you can download several past variants randomly from different exam sittings. That is my recommendation. Or you can obviously download all variants for a single pre-seen and review them in order. Either way is completely fine. Read them thoroughly and carefully. Make notes and link areas to theory, right? Do an independent review of the questions. As in, what I mean by independent is, you shouldn't, these are learning exercise, so you shouldn't really work too hard on linking the pre-seen to the variant, right? Because these variants should be looked at generally, right? They're trying to ask you and prod and poke you and put you in a particular situation and derive certain information from you. So you need to be able to look at those variants independently. That's why I mentioned that it can be a random downloading rather than a sequential downloading, but either way is fine. Discard the circumstance. So what you do is you take those variants, you discard the specific circumstance of that particular pre-seen or that particular case, but you learn from the embedded question and understand the underlying theory within each task. So the whole exercise is about, if you do the step 1 right, the whole exercise is about understanding the examiner, understanding the question format, understanding which co-activity and assessment outcome has been tested from the variant, rather than looking at that particular situation and that particular company. It's unlikely that the same situation for the same company is going to get repeated, right? We are always going to get a new pre-seen, and we are always going to get new situations, new problems, new circumstances. So that open-mindedness is something you can build in through this step, and try your best to get into the examiner's head using this exercise. That is my way, right? That is how I train students to the best of my ability to really understand the examiner's mind and give the examiner what they want. So this is practically one of the initial very important steps in getting into the examiner's head, because if you understand what the examiner wants, you can give them what they want. The CIMA examiner, I have to very specifically say that the CIMA examiner maintains extremely high standards. I actually like the CIMA examiner. Good standards, very high standards. You need to match it through your analysis that you do in this step. And that brings me to the fifth and final to do while you wait for the pre-seen: practice answer sketches. What you can do is you can randomly select a few tasks from among those variants you analyzed in step 4, little typo there, preferably pre-seen documents that you analyzed in step 3, right? So you pick a few tasks and you can choose them based on theory content, your comfort level, your preferences, your judgment of difficulty, etc. Right? It can be those selections can be from various criteria, right? It can be probably because you like them, or probably because you feel like this is an area that you're weak in, so you want to improve in that area. Either way is fine, right? Multiple criteria is available. Ignore the specific circumstance and generalize the situation into a normal context. My recommendation to my students usually is to think about their business. Think about their business and apply that problem to their business. What will you do, or what will in your case, what will you do if you're facing that problem within your business? So you can understand the question requirement and practice sketching answers to these requirements using original ideas. Originality is critical, originality is important, and being quick on your feet in being original is what will get you through this exam. It's a 3-hour paper, limited time. So the whole game is within 3 hours, can you present your original ideas using the knowledge you've gained over your financial education to effectively solve a particular business problem. So if you can do it within those 3 hours, we're good. That is why being original while you're quick, right? Being original fast to match the 3-hour time frame is important. They can initially take any form comfortable for you, all these answer sketches. They can be lines, lists, bullet points, they can be a map, sequence, etc. right? Don't worry too much about the sequence, right? You can just scribble a few points in a piece of paper. That is also totally fine. Ultimate objective is to have a complete answer sketch for selected variants. That is the ultimate objective. You can later compare those sketches with examiner's suggested answers to see if you've been on the right track. So the purpose of this task is for you to really be familiar in playing this game, right? You practice writing, before writing, you practice sketching, you practice planning, because one of the most important things that I work with in my sessions to train students is the idea is that you should know what you want to write before you write them, right? You shouldn't be discovering what you want to write as you write them. That can be very dangerous because you might end up writing things that have nothing to do with the requirement, and this is something that the examiner has continuously pinpointed, right? So we don't want that to happen in your case, and therefore practice answer sketches. These are the 5 things that you can do while you wait for the pre-seen. Now, as you know, I always go a little bit further, but before that, yes, remember the examiner answer. Now, as you write your answers, what you will do is, now you will notice until this point I haven't really talked about you referring to answers, right? Examiner's suggested answers. That is because I don't want you to look at them until this point. After you sketch answers, you can remember this: the examiner answer is not the only right answer, right? You can be creative. You would have written things that are entirely different but are completely valid, for which you get rewarded by full length. So the suggested answers provided here, they act as a guide to show you whether you're on the right track, and if not, how you can improve. So they are just a guide, they're just a guiding, or they're just something that will provide you some sense of direction as to whether you're doing the right thing or whether you're on the right track. That is it. By no means you should assume that this is the best answer in the world. It is not something, it is more a learning tool than an answer benchmark for you, right? So that is something that I wanted to specify about the examiner's answer. And there we go. Those are the 5 key things you can do while you wait for the pre-seen. And like I said, I usually go a little further, and to further support you, what I've done is I've created a Google Drive folder that includes many documents I refer to here, right? Almost all documents. And what you can do is, or rather, I want to be very clear here. They are all available. All these documents I'm mentioning or I've included in the folder are within the public domain. These aren't anything new. You can find them in the CIMA website and a few other places in the internet if you browse hard enough. But if any of you haven't done it already, you can use this folder as a one-stop location. That's all, right? So it's just something that might make things easier for you. That's it, right? I'm not saying that you can't find it on the internet. By all means, you can. The link is given below in the description. You can access the folder and utilize the content in any way that is productive for you. All right. So on that note, I hope to see you for the CIMA SCS with AZB session that is happening live with me on the 3rd of October 2020 at 4 p.m. Indian Standard Time. The meeting registration link is also provided below. It's absolutely free, and you can just literally meet me, and I'm looking forward to seeing you there, meeting you and talking to you, discussing the CIMA SCS and how figuring out how best I can be of help, I can be of support to you in becoming a CIMA member. That marks the end of this particular video. I sincerely hope that you put it to good use. I sincerely hope that you spend the few days that you have, the next few days until the pre-seen is released, in the most effective manner, because if you do that, remember, if you do these 5 steps well, it means that the workload is much less, and if the workload is much less, you can balance your professional, personal and educational life in a nice, beautiful way. You can be stress-free and do the exam in good spirits, right? In high spirits, and that can create all the difference between a pass and a fail in the exam, right? As we've seen countless times. So with all that, wishing you the best of luck, and I hope to see you soon. Until next time, take care, be happy, keep smiling, and good luck. AZB signing out.